A?
Are we good to go, Dave?
She's got earphones on.
Go?
Go.
I guess so.
Bob?
Yeah, so ready? You're in it. We're all good. All right.
Give another one, Bob.
Do another one. You were recording.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to R&R. And we got an incredible show for you lined up tonight. We have the band Surrender. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them. So let's hear it for Surrender. Come on. All right.
Thank you for that introduction. You know, one of the most amazing things in Scripture is the fact that God sent Jesus while we were sinners, while we were enemies of God. Jesus Christ came to this earth, and through his righteousness, nothing that we could do ourselves, but through his righteousness, we went from being enemies of God to friends of God. Who am I that you are mindful of me, that you heard me when I call? Is it true that you are thinking of me? Oh, how you love me. friend of God.
Make it.
You're calling me over. You're pulling me close. With love you surround me. You give me hope. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're taking me deeper. You're making me whole. With grace you redeem me, yeah. You restore my soul. Now I'm made new because of you. Yeah. You hold my head up. You remind me who I am. You hold my head up. I'm alive in you again. You're making me stronger. You're healing my heart. With your hands you hold me in. You set me apart. Now I'm made new because of you. Hold my head up. You remind me who I am. You hold my head up. I'm alive in you again. I've made new. I've made new. On my salvation, I will not fear no more. You're the strength of my life. I won't fear no more. You are my salvation. I will not fear no more. You're the strength of my life. I won't fear no more.
I really like that song because in the Bible it does say that He is the lifter of my head. And I think when we have a lot of shame, you know, we don't want to make eye contact, we don't want to put our heads up. But God does say, it's okay to look at me, it's okay to lift your head. I'm the lifter of your head. You know, it's because of what He's done for us and what He does in us that we're able to do that. So we're the Surrender Band. I think you guys know that by all the 10 introductions we had. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And but I just want to introduce really quickly a few people that are helping us out tonight and sitting in. And to my left, I have Mike on keyboards. Amazing. Give Mike a hand. He's just awesome. He's been playing with us. It's wonderful. And Jim, Pastor Jim, guitar, Steve Wallace, bass. And sitting in with us tonight is Mike Schmidt on drums. Laura Howell, she's my sister. And Rich, and on guitar. Thank you, Rich. And I'm Jeannie. So thanks for having us tonight, you guys. We really love being here. We feel like kindred spirit with all what you guys do and who you are. And so thanks for letting us come and speak God's love to you. Rich Modeluski. It's called Live Your Life. It's a really good recovery song we found.
Live your life like running a race. Take one step at a time. Don't be distracted by what you see. Keep your eyes on the finish line. It's easy to want everything that you see. Material satisfaction won't give you what you need. Live your life like running a race. Take one step at a time. Don't be distracted by what you see. Keep your eyes on the finish line. Give what you can to those who in need. You don't have to save the world, just those who do in need. Live your life like running a race. Take one step at a time. Don't be distracted by what you see. Keep your eyes on the finish line. The road is long and rough. In time you will fall. But Jesus will pick you up when you answer his call. You're tired and discouraged, but ahead you will live. Must always remember, every ways at the end. Live your life like running a race. Take one step at a time. Don't be distracted by what you see. Keep your eyes on the. Can you guys help us out here? Live your life like running a race. Take one step at a time. Don't be distracted by what you see. Keep your eyes on the finish line. Live your life like running a race. Take one step at a time. Don't be distracted by what you see. Keep your eyes on the finish line. Live your life.
That was a song that Rich wrote. All right, sounds great. I just want to give the sound man, thank you so much for doing the sound tonight. Angela, right? Angela, thank you. Good job. It's a lot of pressure, you know what I'm saying? We're looking at you. No, just kidding. All right. His love never fails. And there is nothing that can separate us from His love. That's a promise. Those aren't just words. That's a real thing. God really came to do that, to give us that, to make us his sons and daughters. And we're just, I don't even think I know, I can't really grasp that honestly. And maybe not until we're in heaven will we understand the depth and the width and the height of his love for us. So here we go with another good love song. Thank you, God. Kind of a newer song, but we need your help with this song, okay? It's going to be an interactive song. I know, that's right. Yes, we have surrendered our voices. Okay, so it's true. We're losing our voices. But God is good, and just keeping in the theme with Him being the King, and we're His kids, and we are children of the Most High God. So we need to act like it, right? We need to act like children, not like children, but you know what I'm saying. Act like we're the children of the King. Okay. All right.
surrender. I didn't want that to stop. Were they bringing it or what? Oh man, I love that stuff. That was good stuff. Oh, we are blessed. We are blessed. Hey, let's give a hand to the people back there making all that great food for us tonight. And let's give a hand to all those people that serve this ministry, like Angelo and Wyatt and okay, they couldn't see me. That's all right. You guys can see me. We're going to start tonight by saying the Serenity Prayer. So if you have that in its entirety, that's what we'll start the evening with. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking as he did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him in the next. Amen. All right. I've asked John to come up and read our mission statement.
Hi, I'm John. I'm a codependent. R&R's mission. Our mission is to carry a message of love and hope to those suffering in their dependencies and addictions by inviting them to a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. At R&R, we carry our love and hope to others by first acknowledging the love and hope that we have received. Many of us have suffered through our own addictions. Some have lost family relationships, lost self-respect, and ended on a road leading to unabated bondage and death, until we found a power greater than ourselves, God, through a personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
Thank you, John. This is a prayerful church, and we like to pray for people. Anybody out there need prayer? I know I do. There's a guy who's going to pass out some prayer cards right here. Put your prayers on that card, and then there's a team that will pray for you guys this week. Rick?
Put this basket over there on that.
Oh, okay. There's a prayer basket that Rick will put in the back, so that after you fill out your prayer cards, you can put the prayer cards in the basket. Thank you, Rick. Couple of announcements. The restrooms, men's restroom is straight out the door, straight over to the other side of the church, and the women's restroom is right down the hallway there on the left. If you smoke, and I recommend that you don't, there's a smoking area which is rather far away for one reason. We don't want you to smoke. It's back behind that building. Just please enjoy your food, and then after that make sure you put your garbage in the trash cans, and just pick up after yourself is all we ask. Anybody here for the first time tonight? Anybody here that would like to introduce themselves to us so that we can get to know you? No? Anybody who's here that hasn't been here for a while that we can welcome back? No? Okay, well, glad that you're all here. Glad that I'm here, and let's proceed. Donations. Oh no, I'm sorry. Any birthdays tonight? Any birthdays? Anybody celebrating a recovery milestone, a birthday of any type?
My real birthday is tomorrow.
Oh, his real birthday is tomorrow. Well, happy birthday. Anybody got a recovery milestone? Okay. We're going to go ahead and pass out the donation baskets, and I'll pray for the offering. Lord, thank you so much for what you've given us, Lord. All that we have, really, you've given us, and this is an opportunity for us to give back to you. So let us do that with a joyful heart. We give this to you, Lord, so that you can use it for this ministry. In your blessed name we pray, amen. A couple of announcements.
There's a couple of Bible studies. These are on the back sheet of this handout that you got back there. You can check those out a couple times a week. We have those. There's all kinds of other information. And the one thing that is going on is we're coming to the end of the Heart of Recovery. And that is tonight. Dave is going to be talking about one of those subjects. And then next week, we'll have the end of that series with Julie Chin. So make sure you come out for those two messages. Let's see, the car show. Dave will talk about that a little bit later, but looking forward to that. That's always a fun time here at PBC. Hope you show up and hope you get people to get their cars out here. Dave will talk more about that. Let's see. We're just so happy that you're here. There's a Step Closer is every Sunday from 9 o'clock until 10:30 upstairs. Come and join us for that. That is a church service. It's called Step Closer, so be here or be square. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
With that, we're going to turn it over to Dave, who's going to be talking about a Heart of Recovery subject that's near and dear to my heart. My sister struggled with this very subject. Dave, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. There's my mic on here, Mr. Angelo. I don't think it's. You got the mute on? Huh? Mute on? Could be.
There we go.
Is that? Yeah, we go. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Dave.
Hello. All right, so before we get into what we're going to talk about tonight, let me say that, October 14th, right here at PBC, we are going to be hosting the 3rd annual Gears for Glory car show. And this has been a great event. And if you're not familiar with this is a fundraiser for our Brothers Home. And, what a better cause. All these wonderful guys we have here that are current residents of our Brothers Home. And what an incredible ministry that has been over the years. And so about 3 years ago, we started this car show, which is a fundraiser for that. So a couple of things that you can do to help us out with this. One is you can come, which would be great. Yeah. You can also volunteer to help us. And if you volunteer, you get a nice t-shirt, a nice hat, and you get to have a lot of fun. And then, if you know anyone who has a collector automobile, who would like to show their car in our show, we would love to have them. And if you do, you can see me and we'll show you how to get registered. Or you can talk to Rick Toker. He can also help you out with that. If you pick up a flyer off of the back table today, you will see that there is a QR code here. If you give this to someone that has a car, they can click on that QR and it'll take them right to the registration site. So it's very user-friendly and it's very easy. So keep this in mind, keep this in prayer, and we think we can't think of a better cause than our Brothers Home. And what a great bunch of guys we have there right now. And that ministry has blessed a lot of guys over the years, and it has blessed all of us over the years.
Yes, sir.
So keep that in mind. All right, so we're in an 8-week educational series, and tonight we're going to talk about mental illness. So we're going to look at a couple of different things. First of all, why are we talking about this? Well, we're talking about this because mental illness has a direct correlation, a direct connection to addiction, drug and alcohol addiction. Now, if you want to throw some statistics out, they will tell you that about 53% of people who go into treatment for addiction are eventually diagnosed as also having mental illness issues. And the actual statistic says that about 53% of all addicts are dually diagnosed. That means that they have mental health issues. But that percentage really doesn't compute to me anecdotally, because I spent 15 years working in treatment centers and program director of treatment centers, and I can tell you that about 99% of the people that came through there had mental health issues. So that 53% is those are diagnosed. There are many undiagnosed people, and that's a problem. So this is an important subject for us because those of you who've been around this ministry for a while know that we encounter people from time to time who clearly have mental health issues. And we are not really equipped in many ways to deal with that. So I'm going to talk about some of the different mental illnesses that you may or may not be familiar with. And we're going to talk about the major ones tonight that particularly affect people who are also addicts. And then at the end, we're going to talk about how you can cope with this when you run across this with your loved ones, in this ministry, in your community, or whatever place that you may run into this. So I have very close loved ones, family members, who have been struggling with different kinds of mental illness over the years. So I have some not only experience with this working in the field, but I also have a lot of personal experience with this. So let me give you, see if this is working okay. And the answer would be no, it isn't. Oh, there we go. All right. Oh yeah, well this will date a few people here. Anybody know who that is? Oh, there's the old people that know Jack Webb. He was, I don't think this guy in his entire adult life, I don't think he ever smiled. He certainly never smiled on the TV show, and his favorite line was, "Just the facts, ma'am." You know? So I'm going to give you, no, it's working.
No, I clicked it on the slide.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I think I need to.
All right, so let me give you let me just give you the facts, ma'am. Yeah. So the National Institute of Mental Health has reported now, this is already a shocking statistic, but it's absolutely accurate, that 1 in 5 adults in the United States, that is 58 million people, live with a mental illness. That is a huge number, huge number. And according to the latest statistics we have, there are 19% of the population of the United States, about 48 million people, have anxiety disorders. One of the things we're going to talk about tonight. 21 million, 8.4%, have experienced a major depressive episode. Or depression is their mental health issue. 9 million adults are currently suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is something that affects our ministry on a daily basis because of our wonderful relationship with the VA. So we see PTSD, we see it in a real way. We see it every day. 7 million, 3%, roughly 3%, have bipolar disorder. About 3.5 million have borderline personality disorders, and about 3 million people live with obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. So here's some interesting things that have happened over the course of the last few years, and that is to take a look at the impact that COVID has had on this whole mental health issue, and also on addiction. So since the COVID pandemic began in 2020, the rates of anxiety and depression among U.S. adults has increased 4 times. It's 4 times higher than it had been previously been. That's a big number. Substance abuse increased dramatically during this period, and I don't think that comes as a surprise to any of us. I think that was very predictable. For one thing, you had a lot of people who had this illness, and the increase, Kaiser say that the drug overdose deaths increased by 50% during the pandemic. Huge number. And these increases were even more pronounced for people of color. Also, some very bad news. Likewise, excessive drinking increased during the pandemic, with alcohol-induced deaths increased by 38%. These are, I mean, when you convert those into real hard numbers, that's scary information. So this is, not only is it things bad enough, not only is the drug and alcohol abuse out of control, but then along comes COVID, and what does that do? It just exacerbated it. So we're going to talk about some of the risk factors for mental health before we proceed any further, and before we talk about some specific mental health issues. Risk factors. What puts you at risk for having mental illness? Well, the first thing is genetic predisposition or family history. And so you may be carrying a genetic marker for some sort of mental illness. The other thing would be childhood abuse or neglect. We know that this is a big factor. Adversity in early life, perhaps poverty or lack of adequate housing. And then, of course, another risk for mental health disorders is traumatic life events. And that might include things like sexual or physical assault. Acute medical conditions can also bring on mental health issues. Understandable, particularly depression. And then, of course, alcohol and drug use in and of themselves are a risk factor for mental health disorders. And then we have, finally, social or situational stressors. And that might include things like financial stress, the death of a loved one, divorce, or loved one perhaps being incarcerated. These are all stress factors that may ultimately lead to mental health issues. So let's look at some of the types of mental health issues. Also, there are a number of mental health issues, but these are the primary ones, and these are also the ones that relate most directly to the drug and alcohol abuse. Depression, anxiety disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and schizophrenia. So these would be the ones that we would come across most often when we're operating in the recovery community. First one that we want to talk about tonight, and the one that probably is talked about more than any other, is the whole idea of depression. So exactly what is depression defined? Depression is a feeling of sadness. It's often a feeling of worthlessness, and it's also a feeling of despair. And those of you who have suffered from depression over the years will quickly identify with any of those symptoms. A loss of interest in activities that used to provide pleasure. And that almost automatically connects to isolation, which, as we know, is a very dangerous thing, particularly in recovery. Another symptom is changes in sleep patterns. It might be sleeping too much, it might be sleeping too little. There is a decrease in libido, typically. There's a loss of energy, fatigue, changes in appetite would be another factor for depression. Self-destructive behaviors, feeling worthless or guilty, brain fog, difficulty concentrating or staying focused, and any difficulty making decisions. That was one of the things that people often ask me, well, what is the, particularly people that are new in recovery, well, what for you over the years has been the number one benefit of sobriety, of a life of sobriety? And I give the answer immediately. It's clarity. Clarity. So I operated in a fog for about 30 years. I made horrible decisions, horrible life decisions. When I got sober, it was almost a physical thing. All of a sudden, I remember sort of having this epiphany one day, and I said, you know what? I have clarity. I'm making decisions. I'm actually making good decisions. And that's because we have clarity. Very important part of my personal experience. I easily think that's been the number one benefit for me. It's just having a clear mind. It's so, so important. Also, you know, there can be in depression can lead to another very dangerous thing, which is suicidal thoughts. And of course, this could be a plan, an active suicide plan or a suicide attempt. And let me just throw in real quickly, if you have an opportunity to encounter someone who is talking about taking their life, many of you know that if that person has a plan, then we need to call 911 immediately. And as a matter of fact, when you're a certified counselor in the state of California, you are mandated to do that. If I have a client that comes in and says, you know, I'm sick and tired of this whole thing, I think I'm just going to end it all. And I say, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to step in front of the 2 o'clock train or whatever. I pick up the phone, call 911. There's no hesitation, there's no conversation, it's over. And you might keep that in mind if you should encounter that at some point. You may not be mandated to do that, but as a human being, you better do it. So let's talk about a topic that gets thrown about a lot about depression and also as it relates to addiction. And that is what we call dual diagnosis. So dual diagnosis, as most of you know, is having a substance abuse issue, being an addict, and then also having mental health issues. That's dual diagnosis. The interesting thing about dual diagnosis is it's very much a which came first, the chicken or the egg situation. And I'll tell you why. So, am I depressed because I drink, or do I drink because I'm depressed? Honest question. I asked myself that question specifically when I was suffering from depression. Am I depressed because I drink, or do I drink because I'm depressed? From a clinical point of view, it doesn't matter, because you have to treat them both. So it really doesn't matter which came first, the chicken or the egg. So the next thing we want to talk about for a few minutes is this whole thing of, oh, by the way, let me back up for 1 second, because I want to talk a little bit, I think we'll do it in order rather than close it out that way. Let's talk a little bit about how we treat depression, what the treatment modalities are. So one of the treatment issues for depression is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And to break that down into simple terms, that is simply talk therapy. That is just sitting down with someone and talking to them, and having them talk through their issues. And this is extremely important. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a professional, it could be your sponsor for that matter. The point is that you need to have a dialogue about this depression, and you need to get to the origin of that. So cognitive behavioral therapy, any of you who have experienced that in going through rehab or what it is, of talk therapy that tries to redirect all your negative thoughts and teaches you coping skills. So depression can be exacerbated by just doing things like isolating, for instance, getting in your head. And it's really interesting. I'll just throw this out because it's something that you should all be aware of, and it's so simple that a lot of times it almost seems too simple. But I will tell you that if you go to a psychiatrist and you start talking about depression, particularly the idea of isolating with your depression and getting into that dangerous neighborhood known as your head, which we know you never go there alone. So if you are doing that, you know what the psychiatrist is going to tell you is when you are in that mode, you are in that place, you need to change your activity. Change your activity. And I'm paying you $500 to tell me that? I'm telling you, that's exactly what he's, and it's the best advice you'll ever get, and I just gave it to you for free. Change your activity. Go walking around the block. I don't care if it's the middle of the night. It's the middle of the night, which is a lot of times when we get in our head. Get up, go turn on the TV, watch an infomercial, go make an omelet, whatever, but change your activity. It's very fundamental, but it really is the most important thing that you can do. So I give you that little thing for free. Then there's group therapy. And you know, we're engaged in group therapy. We're in group therapy even as we speak, are we not? Bible studies, group therapy. It doesn't have to be sitting down at Kaiser with your psychologist, which is fine. I mean, that's great. That's great group therapy, and I did that for a number of years. But that's why support groups are extremely important for when we get this depressed state. And of course, there's medications, antidepressant medication. Let me just say this loud and clear so everyone understands and everyone is completely clear on this. There is nothing wrong with taking medication. If it has to meet two criteria. Number one, you have to take it as prescribed, and it has to be prescribed by a knowledgeable physician. That's the criteria right there. Now, taking it as directed is not like the old Dave Thorne thing where instead of taking one every 4 hours, I take 4 every 1 hour. That's not as directed. And when we talk about a knowledgeable physician, that's a physician that knows that you're an addict. I have seen more problems created by people not coming clean with their primary care physician that they're an addict. And you know what the guy does? He starts writing prescription for Oxycontin and Valium because he doesn't know any better. And we have to I remember when I was first sober, first thing I told my doctor, the first appointment I had with her, is I said, I'm an alcoholic and I'm a drug addict. And that changed the whole way that she treated me medically going forward. So, you know, I remember this one thing so vividly. I had this woman who, she got to the point where she was taking about 55 Norcos a day. Now, if I took 55 Norcos, I would be dead in about 20 minutes. She had built enormous tolerance for this stuff. So I hadn't seen her for a number of years, and she came back and she said that she had relapsed. She went to the dentist to have a root canal or whatever, and he writes her a prescription for Vicodin. And she fills it, and she's off to the races. Now, was that his fault? No, not at all. So so that's the criteria. But there is nothing wrong with taking medication if it meets those criteria. And I can tell you that the right medication for mental illness is a lifesaver. It is a life-changing event. So I have a loved one who is bipolar. And she's not only bipolar, but she's had 2 psychotic episodes with her bipolar. And she has a wonderful psychiatrist who worked with her and worked with her and worked with her, and they kept tinkering with this medication. They kept tweaking it, but they never gave up. And for the last 10 years, she's been perfectly stable because they got it right. And the other thing that I hear, this is another thing that happens too, is we have people say, like for instance, this is a direct example. A guy comes to me and says, I relapsed. I said, what happened? Well, you know what, I stopped taking my Prozac. And I said, will the doctor tell you to do that? No, the doctor didn't tell me to do that. Well, did you have bad side effects? No, that wasn't it. Well, why would you do that? A guy at AA told me I shouldn't take any pills. I mean, is this guy a doctor? I don't know. Shouldn't take any pills. And you know, we know the solution to that. The solution to that is that's not being directed by a knowledgeable physician. Anyway, the next one that we want to talk about a little bit is anxiety. So, what is anxiety? Anxiety is frequently feeling very nervous, tense, restless, being on edge, irritability, being easily fatigued, very great difficulty concentrating or focusing on anything other than the current working, difficulty sleeping. Anxiety certainly brings that on, an inability to quell worrying thoughts and feelings. This is going to that bad place. And an inability to quell worrying thoughts and feelings. Feelings of disapproval or a negative evaluation by others, self-esteem issues, and avoidance of social settings, which would be, in my opinion, isolation. Very dangerous stuff. And anxiety can go to the next level, which is panic attacks. And I'm sure there are people in this room that have experienced that. Panic attack is a brief, intense, acute surge of anxiety that can also be accompanied by physical and emotional symptoms, such as a sense of impending doom, or that you're about to lose control of your life. And some of it's physical, elevated heart rates, blood pressure, and so forth. So, there's several types of anxiety disorders, and I'll just go through these briefly just so you have a little bit of an overview. One is called generalized anxiety disorder, and that's characterized by almost constant anxiety, and it also generally goes along with depression. So many of these times, anxiety and depression are very hard to separate, and sometimes they're operating jointly. Panic disorder. This includes repeated panic attacks, and that also may have physical characteristics. Social anxiety disorder is being afraid to be in any kind of social situations. And if you're afraid to be in any kind of social situation, what are you doing? You're isolating, are you not? And then phobias or fears, which would cause a lot of anxiety. You know, it's real interesting. In step 4, as you know, we inventory fear. And so I did a lot of my treatment center, we did a lot of step 4 work, even though most treatment centers only go through the first 3. But I felt that step 4 was so important. We always did some preliminary work on step 4. And so we had occasion to find out what people's fears were. And I started keeping track of it because I was interested in what the predominant fear was of addicts. By the way, you know what the number one fear of people in the United States is? You know, that was what I guessed. Public speaking, but it's wrong.
Commitment.
No, it is flying. Yeah. So I've always said I'm not afraid to fly, I'm afraid to crash. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm not afraid at all to fly. But you know what? After 15 years of keeping track of this, you know what the number one fear of addicts is? By far?
Running out. Relapsing.
No, and I would have guessed relapse also. It is responsibility. Overwhelmingly. Because think about it. You didn't want to be, when you were in your disease, you didn't want to be responsible for anything. You particularly didn't want to be responsible for yourself. That was number one thing you didn't want to be responsible for. Yeah, responsibility. I thought that was interesting. But it was overwhelming. That was overwhelmingly the biggest fear. All right, so anxiety, panic attacks. Treatments, again, for anxiety, we go the same route with the cognitive behavioral therapy. And also, this is one case where medication, some medication that is being given for anxiety is completely inappropriate. And I'm talking about how frequently benzodiazepines are prescribed for anxiety. That's the last thing in the world you need is benzodiazepines because they are highly addictive. And yet they're constantly being prescribed by people, to people, Xanax, you know, it's just completely out of control. So we're talking about psychiatric medications, antidepressants, those kinds of things can be very effective here, but not benzodiazepines. The next one we want to talk about is a kind of a crazy one, and that's OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So what does this include? It includes, this is the area where things like germaphobes come into play here in OCD. Frequent hand washing, that's one, here's my guy, he's washing his hands. Arranging things in a certain order, repeatedly checking on things to make sure they're okay, like going in 50 times to make sure your stove is turned off, and that kind of stuff. And so, here's this is kind of fun. I just threw this in here because this is called the OCD's worst nightmare. There's one. Yeah, gotta fix that, right? Okay. Gotta fix that. Look at this one. How the heck did that black highlighter get in there? Get that out of there. How about this one? The OCD guy. Huh? Look at this one. I love that. How to cut a brownie. I love it. The OCD guy would go absolutely berserk.
From now on, that's the way I'm cutting cakes.
Yeah. This thing is really not working very well. Okay, so let's go back to OCD on a more serious note.
PTSD?
So, treating OCD is a tricky one. It involves, again, talk therapy. Is in all of these, that's a very essential part of this, talk therapy. A lot of times, a lot of these things can be solved just by sitting down with someone and opening up and talking to them about your issues. Certain medication, and again, the most effective thing for OCD has been SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which are essentially antidepressants, but they work very well for OCD. Now, the next one we want to talk about is PTSD. And as I said a few minutes ago, this PTSD thing is interesting because it's something that we see quite frequently in this ministry because of our association with the VA. So what are some of the symptoms of PTSD? Unwanted, repeated, vivid flashbacks or nightmares of events. We know that. A need to avoid triggers that are reminiscent of the traumatic event. Now, I'm going to talk about an exception to that in a minute, but that's one of the symptoms. Well, the other symptom is anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, distorted beliefs about yourself. This always carries with it a lot of low self-esteem, and also perception that you're not good enough, that kind of thing. Then there's reactive symptoms as difficulty sleeping or difficulty concentrating. And some of these irritable outbursts might result in reckless behavior. And then this also goes with it is almost persistent depression and sometimes suicidal thoughts, quite often suicidal thoughts. And again, the treatment for this is good old cognitive behavioral therapy, again, talk therapy throughout all of these. Here's the other one is to know what your triggers are and learn how to manage those triggers. Antidepressant medication works very well for PTSD because it is a form of depression. And then here's an interesting way that one psychiatrist dealt with PTSD, and I thought this was really interesting, and I don't know how often this is done, but this is a personal friend of mine, a guy that, and he and I have been friends since like the 7th grade. He was a Vietnam vet, and he had some horrible horrible experiences in Vietnam, and he suffered mightily with PTSD, and he just couldn't get past it. Having all sorts of flashbacks and, you know, in and out of the VA all the time, and it was really a serious problem. And one time he was seeing a new psychiatrist at the VA, and the guy said, he said, Bert, you know what you need to do? You need to go to Vietnam. And you need to go to all the places that you are agonizing over in Vietnam. And he did. And he's never had PTSD since. So as returned to the scene of the crime, but you see what it made him do, it made him confront the reality of it. And of course, the places where it was a hellhole when he was there in the 60s is now a beautiful town or a beautiful area. So he saw that change in the environment, and it made him change his environment. Does that make any sense? Yeah. I thought it was actually really brilliant. The guy said, you need to go to Vietnam, and that's what he did. Anyway, let's talk about, let's see if I have, I don't remember if I have a slide for this or not. I might not. No. So let's talk about one that is very much misunderstood. It gets thrown around a lot, and that is this wonderful term bipolar, or as it used to be called in the olden days, it was called manic depressive syndrome. So bipolar, what are some of the symptoms of it? Inflated self-esteem or grandiosity, delusions of grandeur. Impulsive behavior, such as excessive risk-taking, might include gambling or sexual promiscuity. An excessively elevated mood when they're on the manic side. Racing thoughts, talking very quickly. Extreme euphoria, delusions, irritability, and high levels of energy. So people who are in the depressive side of this, experience lethargy, a loss of interest in activities that used to be pleasurable for them. Feelings of profound depression, profound depression. Changes in sleep or appetite, suicidal thoughts and actions. And the suicide risk with bipolar disorder is substantially increased. This also carries, and we recently saw this in our ministry with psychotic episodes. And these, the loved one in my family who is bipolar had 2 psychotic episodes. And these psychotic episodes are really bizarre. I was working in the fashion industry at the time, and I was complaining to her about my job, and she said, and she was in the facility being treated then, and she said, that's not a problem, I bought the company yesterday. And, I didn't laugh. I didn't say, no you didn't, that's nuts. I said, great, that's great. And of course, the thing we have to understand about these psychotic episodes is that when they're over, the person has absolutely no idea what they said or did. So even, if it was insulting and degrading or whatever was done to us, you have to remember that they are not going to recall any of this. And that's kind of important for us to know, because someone may, in this condition, may say some really awful things to us. Anyway, one of the things that we don't ever want to do when we're talking to someone, well, actually, we're going to talk about that in a more, let me skip to that in a second. So, to be diagnosed, so bipolar has to be correctly diagnosed. It's a term that people diagnose themselves bipolar. I've known lots of them, I'm bipolar. And they think they're bipolar because they're just going up and down all the time. That's not being bipolar. You have to be diagnosed by a professional. It's not something we self-diagnose. And to be diagnosed with a bipolar 1 or 2, you have to meet stringent clinical criteria, and you have to experience the cycle of symptoms for 2 years or more. So this is not fleeting episodes. This is something that's showing up over a long period of time. And then once a diagnosis has been made, then these mood disorders can be managed with, again, talk therapy and medication. And this calls for very powerful medication. Things like Abilify, stuff like that. I mean, these are very serious medications. But when they are dosed properly, they are absolutely life-changing. So now I want to move into, to close out tonight, I want to move into the reality of what can we do if we're confronted with someone who is mentally unstable. So a couple of things is, and again, we recently had direct experience with this. And I don't know how well any of us were really equipped for that, but I'll give you some suggestions for this, because this is going to happen again, I guarantee you. And we want to be ready to handle it properly. The first thing is you have to be calm. Because if this person is in an agitated state, don't allow yourself to go into an agitated state. That's only going to make the situation worse. So we have to stay calm, and we have to be patient. And we have to listen to them and respect their personal space, but we have to be very careful. So in other words, someone who has a psychosis is very unpredictable, and if you feel unsafe or threatened, you should not continue the conversation. Don't continue the conversation. If it's going sideways, you don't continue it. You can offer some assistance if it's feasible. And the kind of assistance you might offer is to call the police for them. If they're in an extremely agitated state, you might be get them to an emergency room, offer to take them to an emergency room. And we've had people in this ministry who have done that. And God bless them. I've seen that someone is in a bad state and driven them to the ER. And if someone is hearing voices or they have delusional beliefs, don't tell them that they're not real. Because I've got to tell you, they're very real to that person. So if somebody comes to you and says, I'm the new king of England, you don't say, no, you're not. You're full of baloney. You don't do that at all. Because they believe that that's very, very real. And so you acknowledge that what they've said, but you don't tell them they're crazy, for example. Because you know what? They're not crazy. They are experiencing a very real disease, and it has to be treated as such. And we have to also recognize our own limits. As far as I know, no one in this room is a psychiatrist. And therefore, we are very limited in what we can do. We're not professionals, and we shouldn't try to be professionals. So these people need us to be kind to them and supportive, but they really need treatment with a professional psychiatric team. And so our goal should be to make that happen. So if we can get somebody a referral, or we can take them to a facility, then by all means we should do that. But that is about the limit of what we are able to do. And we also want to recognize that we have limitations, and we are not professionals. So we want to be loving, we want to be kind, we want to tell people that they're wrong, we don't want to tell people they're lying, we don't want to tell people they're crazy. We want to be supportive in whatever way we can. So don't tell them also that what they're saying is not true, because as I just said, it's very true to them. And for you to tell them that it isn't is not going to change their mind at that particular moment. Remember, it's a psychotic episode. And there's no point in being argumentative, because that will make them more agitated. So we want to present ourselves in a very peaceful and calm way. And of course, in our case, with the kind of ministry we have here, we have the opportunity to offer the best solution of all, and that's Jesus Christ. And not only that, but we have the opportunity to pray with them. And we should do that. But we also need to know our limitations. So I think that is gives us some insight into, first of all, what we may be faced with, and also some of the things that we might do. So like any illness, we want to approach, just like a physical illness, we want to approach this with kindness, love, understanding, and try to help them as much as we can, stopping short of becoming an armchair psychiatrist. So I hope that's informative. I hope that's helpful. And I know some of you actually have some of these things that we're talking about. And it's not a curse. It is something that we need to be sensitive to, and there are solutions. And we've talked about some of those tonight. Father, this is a very interesting, difficult subject, but this is the real world. This is reality. And the brain is a fascinating organ, and we don't know much about it. But we do know that you are the great physician. And we know that you can come alongside these people in ways that we could never do, that no doctor could ever do. But the power of Jesus Christ and the power of the Holy Spirit can change lives and can heal. And we ask that we become aware of that and guide and direct these people as best we can into perhaps a knowledge of Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. And we ask all of this in Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Thank you, Dave. Let's hear it for Dave. A lot of research went into that. I know I can speak personally. My sister had a couple bipolar episodes, and it was very challenging to go through that with her. And I wish I would have known what Dave was just talking about. That would have really helped. But we're grateful that you're here. This is now a time to share what you might be going through in your own personal life. We open up the night to you to come on up here and talk about what might be on your heart. Would anybody like to share?
Yeah, I'll share.
Pete's going to come on up.
My name's Pete. And I really needed to come here tonight. I've had a really hard day. The last couple of days have been really hard for me, a couple of days ago I was with my sister, and we're renovating my condo like I've been talking about for the last couple of months. I've been talking about this stuff for days and days and days and days and days out. And so I got in the car with her, and we're driving down this upholstery place down there in Mountain View. We're over there by Escuela, and I went off on her, man. I jumped on her shit, and I just said, that, like that. And she couldn't handle it.
My name's Wyatt. How are you guys doing? Yeah, I know about mental illness quite a bit. Both my parents, I don't know whether it's by choice or just something that happened, but they went through it when I was little, and I think the biggest thing for me is the people that and the children that have to be present when people aren't mentally correct. It sucks, but the truth has to be spoken, whether people want to hear it or not. And I don't mind doing that. So I'm just really grateful for being here, and you know, I think it's funny, right? Because I don't know, it's almost as if, like, you know, God can heal me because He's the great physician, but on my own, in the flesh, my sin, I could bring things back to life. You know, the stuff He heals and takes away, I could take it back and run with it. And so I just got to be mindful to, you know, watch who I'm around and watch who I spend time with, because sickness is transferable, you know. I think it's funny, I talk to God quite often, you know, probably more than I should, I'm kidding. But, you know, well, the other day I was thinking, like, man, I wonder what that phone bill would look like, you know. But, you know, sometimes I complain to Him. Well, quite often I complain to Him about things, and, you know, the constant thought that goes in my mind is, it's like, you know, how do you think I felt dying for you? You know, what do you think I felt when I did these things for you? And the things I complain or talk about, you know, in a negative way, when I think of what God did for me, not that it's a comparison, but it brings me back to reality, you know, and to be grateful that He took His time to create me in a way that is unique from everyone else. I could complain about that, or I could just, you know, take it for what it is. You know, like, all the weirdness of my character, I like it. You know, He made me like this. The sporadic and chaotic and crazy depression, uppers, downers, whatever it was, He created me like that. For what reason? Well, I could complain or find out. I have two choices. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Wyatt.
My name's Tony, and Dave, I really appreciate you speaking on this subject. Most people have not known people going through bipolar or schizophrenia or some of these other issues and don't know much about it. But that doesn't mean it won't show up in your life, like you were saying, Dave. There's an interesting movie you can see to kind of see some of this. It's called A Beautiful Mind. And you get done, you go through this movie and you see all this stuff, and then you find out half of it never actually happened. It was in his mind. But to the mentally ill person, it's totally real. And it's totally normal, because we only see with our own mind. And so what's going on in our mind, the way we think, whether it's anxious or depressed or bipolar or borderline, or which is one we didn't talk about, borderline, it all seems normal. We seem normal to ourselves, but not necessarily to other people. So relative to bipolar, and I guess any of the other illnesses we're talking about, there's a series of books called like Plumbing for Dummies, Carpentry for Dummies, but they also have Bipolar for Dummies. And the reason they call it for dummies, it doesn't refer to dumb people. It actually refers to the fact that they've written it in simple English so that everyone can understand it. It's not written in highfalutin stuff and you go, what are they talking about? So that series is very helpful. It's in the libraries. So, you know, if you get a relative that's got depression or bipolar or schizophrenia, you can get those books and learn all about it, especially if it's in your family and you have no choice but to deal with it. Thank you.
Hey, Bob. Anybody else? Got a couple minutes? Burning desire? Here's Rick.
I just talk about the Giants.
They're becoming the midgets. I just realized sometime during R&R today that tomorrow will be the 20th anniversary of when I hit rock bottom. And I lost my job as a programmer, and I was an extreme loner, and my only social connections were my job, and I'd lost that about 6 months before. So I prayed my most sincere prayer, always my most sincere prayer, which is, God, please help me. And it soon led for me to start reading the Bible, and met some wonderful people here at the PBC, Pamela and Jay Chess Savage, and they encouraged me. And on February 1st, 2004, I placed my faith in Jesus Christ. So it's a great anniversary. Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we had tonight, folks. Let's hear it for Dave again for that great. Sorry. I'm sure, yeah, we'll get you some help. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's hear it again for Dave for that wonderful talk. Let's hear it again for the band, Surrender. Thank you for coming out and making that happen. That was wonderful. And let's hear it for all those people that make this happen, all those people that serve the food, all the work that goes into this, and the people that are committed to this ministry. Let's go ahead and stand and join hands, and we'll end the night in prayer.